His mother slid a white envelope across a glass dining table in Palm Beach and told me it was enough money to disappear from her son's life before dessert was served. For a second, nobody breathed. The chandelier above us glittered like frozen rain. 12 people sat around that table in a mansion so polished I could see Mikey peels reflected in the marble floor. I had spent 3 nights sewing the ivory dress I wore, taking it in at the waist, steaming the hem in my tiny apartment bathroom, praying it looked elegant instead of desperate. Grant squeezed my hand under the table when we arrived. "Don't let them scare you, Leah," he had whispered. "They're intense, but they'll come around." I wanted to believe him because I loved him. I loved the quiet version of him, the man who brought coffee to my little alterations shop in West Palm, who listened when I talked about my mother's hospital bills, who once sat on the floor with me at 2 a.m. helping pin lace to a wedding gown for a bride who couldn't afford rush fees. But the Grant sitting beside me in his family's mansion was different, smaller. Quieter. Trapped inside a name that everybody in that room worshipped. His mother, Evelyn Whitmore, sat at the head of the table wearing pearls the size of aspirin and a smile that could freeze water. The Whitmores owned hotels, golf clubs, charity boards, and apparently the right to decide who was human. "So," Evelyn said, looking me over, "you made that dress yourself?" "I did," I said. Grant's older brother, Preston, laughed into his wine. "That's resourceful. Like one of those makeover shows before the reveal." A few people chuckled. Grant shifted in his chair but said nothing. His sister-in-law touched the sleeve of my dress with 2 fingers, as if fabric from my hands might stain her. "It's very homemade." I swallowed the shame-trying Taurus in my throat. "Thank you," I said. "I make gowns for a living." "Oh, we know," Evelyn said. "Grant told us. Alterations, right? Zippers, hems, emergency bridesmaid disasters." "Custom bridal now," I corrected softly. Preston leaned back. "Custom for people who pay in installments?" Laughter again. This time louder. I looked at Grant. He stared at his plate. That was the first crack. Evelyn lifted the envelope and placed it directly in front of me. "This is not meant to be cruel," she said, which was how cruel people announced cruelty. "It's $75,000. Enough to pay your mother's remaining medical debts, upgrade your business, move wherever you like. In exchange, you end this little engagement tonight." My mouth went dry. Grant whispered, "Mom, stop." Both whispered it. Evelyn did not even look at him. "Leah, dear, Grant was raised for a certain life. He's confused by guilt, attraction, and rebellion. You are a phase with pretty eyes and sad circumstances. I am offering you dignity." I stared at the envelope, there was no dignity in it. Only a leash. "My mother taught me something before chemo took her hair," I said, my voice shaking but clear. "Never let rich people confuse a price tag with value." Evelyn's smile vanished. I stood, picked up the envelope, and set it back beside her plate. "I'm not for sale." Then I looked at Grant one last time. "Are you coming?" His face twisted. I saw love there. Fear too. But fear won. He stayed seated. That hurt worse than the envelope. He walked out through a hallway lined with oil painting soft dead Whitmore men who had probably ruined women like me for sport. Outside, the ocean air smelled expensive and cold. He waited by the fountain for 10 minutes, telling myself Grant would run after me. He didn't. By morning, my humiliation had a social life. Someone he at dinner had leaked the story, twisted just enough to make me look hungry and ambitious. Local seamstress tried to trap Whitmore air. Family offered charity, she threw a scene. Palm Beach gossip moved faster than weather. Clients cancelled. A bride asked for her deposit back because she didn't want drama around her gown. My landlord taped a late notice to my door. My mother's hospital sent another bill, even though she had already died 6 weeks before that dinner. I had no family left. No savings. No fiancé. Then my shop window was smashed. A brick lay on the floor beside scattered beads and torn tulle. Wrapped around it was a note. "Stay in your lane." I sat in the broken glass until sunrise with blood on me palm from trying to pick up the pieces. I didn't TCRY over Grant anymore. Something colder had replaced grief. My best friend, Nina, arrived with coffee, a broom, and murder in her eyes. "Tell me we're calling the police." "We are," I said, "then tell me we're suing." "Not yet." She looked at me like I had lost my mind. I picked up a strip of ivory lace from the floor. It was from a dress I had been making for a bride whose father had died before he could walk her down the aisle. Evelyn Whitmore had mistaken me for a poor girl she could erase. That morning, standing in the wreckage of everything I owned, I opened my sketchbook and wrote one sentence across a blank page. "One day, my dress will walk through their front door and bury them." I started again behind Nina's nail salon in a storage room that smelled like acetone, lavender wax, and survival. There was barely space for one sewing machine and 2 dress forms, but it was mine after closing. During the day I altered bridesmaid dresses, fixed prom gowns, replaced busted zippers, and smiled at women who whispered about me while pretending not to. At night, I designed. Not dresses that begged rich women for approval. Dresses with spines. Dresses that looked like a woman could lose everything and still enter a room like a storm. Nina took pictures on her phone and posted them online. A bride from Tampa ordered a gown after seeing a video of me sewing pearls onto a sleeve at 3 a.m. Then a widow asked me to redesign her wedding dress into a gala dress for the first charity event she attended after her husband's death. Then a Miami influencer bought a black reception gown and tagged me. Within 18 months, Leah Hart bridal was no longer a joke whispered in Palm Beach. It was a wait list. But success did not make me soft. It made me observant. I learned that Evelyn Whitmore owed money everywhere. A florist in Boca. A jeweler in Worth Avenue. A caterer in Naples. A private security company. A woman who owned a couture boutique told me Evelyn still owed for 7 gowns from charity seasons past. She pays late, the woman said. Or she threatens to ruin you socially. Sometimes both. That was the first twist I never expected. The woman who offered to buy Midas appearance was living on borrowed money and borrowed status. The second twist walked into my studio on a rainy Thursday. Grant. He looked thinner, less polished, more like the man I had loved before his family swallowed him. He stood in the doorway holding a paper bag from the Cuban bakery down the street. I brought guava pastries, he said, like that could bridge 2 years of silence. I kept pinning lace to a mannequin. Did your mother approve the bakery? He flinched. I'd served that. You deserved worse. He stepped inside slowly. I should have followed you that night. You should have stood up before I had to leave. I know. Ifnally turned around. Then why are you here? He placed the bag on my cutting table. His hand trembled. My mother is arranging my engagement to Claire Huxley. I laughed once, without humor. Congratulations. I'm not marrying her. That sounds like a family issue. She's doing it because Claire's father agreed to refinance one of the hotel loans. If I marry her, Whitmore Group survives another year. I stared at him. So I was too poor to marry, beauty expensive enough to sell? His eyes filled with shame. Yes. That should have satisfied me. It didn't. Grant took a folder from inside his coat. I found something else. The brick through your window. It wasn't random. Preston paid someone from the security staff to scare you off. The room went silent except for rain against the glass. I took the folder. Inside were printed emails, payment records, screenshots, a copy of a security invoice marked, private handling. My knees almost buckled. They tried to ruin my business, I whispered. Grant nodded. And I helped by staying quiet. I wanted to throw him out. I wanted to forgive him. I wanted to never feel either thing again. What do you want from me? I asked. Nothing, he said. I'm giving you what I should have given you then. Proof. He walked toward the door. Grant. He stopped. If you want redemption, don't bring me pastries. Bring me courage. He turned back. What does that mean? It means when the time comes, you don't whisper. The time came 4 months later. Evelyn announced the Whitmore Heritage Gala at the family's flagship hotel, a ridiculous oceanfront monument to old money and polished lies. The gala would celebrate 3 generations of excellence, introduce Grant and Claire as a couple, and raise funds for women entrepreneurs. Women entrepreneurs. I nearly choked when I read the invitation. Then I saw the designer line for the gala's featured fashion presentation. Leah Hart Bridal. Nina screamed when the email came. They invited you? No, I said, reading the fine print. The committee invited me. Evelyn doesn't know yet. Are you going? I looked at the folder Grant had given me. Then at the list of unpaid vendors I had gathered quietly for 2 years. Yes, I said. And I'm bringing every woman she owes. The night of the gala, I arrived not as the girl in homemade ivory standing under a chandelier, waiting to be accepted. I arrived as the show. My collection was called Unbought. The first model wore a pearl white gown with a structured bodice like armor. The second wore silver silk cut sharp as a blade. The third wore a veil embroidered with tiny broken glass beads that caught the light like evidence. Then the room darkened. On the screen behind the runway, a single image appeared, a white envelope on a glass table. The crowd murmured. Evelyn froze in the front row. I walked onto the runway in the final gown myself. Deep midnight blue, hand-beaded, with a train stitched from scraps of the dress I wore the night she tried to buoy me. A host handed me the microphone. I smiled at the room. 2 years ago, in this family's dining room, Evelyn Whitmore offered me $75,000 to leave her son because I was not good enough for their world. Gasps rolled through the ballroom. Evelyn stood. This is outrageous. I continued. She called it dignity. I called it a receipt. The screen changed. Vendor invoices appeared. Emails. Unpaid balances. Threats. Then the payment record tied to my smashed shop window. Preston shot out of his seat. That's fabricated. A man in a black suit stood from the back of the room. No, it isn't. He was the former security contractor. Beside him stood the florist from Boca, the jeweler from Worth Avenue, the caterer from Naples, and 6 other business owners Evelyn had bullied into silence. Then Grant stood. My heart stopped. He took the microphone from the stunned host. My brother arranged the intimidation of Leah Hart. My mother knew. I stayed silent because I was afraid of losing my inheritance. The room went dead. Evelyn's face turned white. Grant, she hissed. He looked at her, and for the first time, he did not shrink. I already lost the only thing that made me decent. Claire Huxley slowly removed the diamond ring Evelyn had forced onto her finger and placed it on the table. My father will not refinance a fraud, she said calmly. That was the third twist, and it landed like thunder. Phones rose. Cameras flashed. The gala built to celebrate the Whitmore name became the night it cracked open in public. Evelyn walked toward me, shaking with rage. You think applause makes you one of us? No, I said. I think truth makes me free of you. You ungrateful little seamstress. I stepped closer. That's the difference between us, Evelyn. I know exactly what my hands can do. Yours only know how to take. Security escorted Preston out after he lunged at Grant. Evelyn tried to leave through a side door, but reporters were already waiting in the hall. By midnight, every major local outlet had the story. By morning, the bank froze the hotel sale. By the end of the week, the state attorney opened an inquiry into vendor fraud and intimidation. The Whitmore mansion was listed for sale 5 months later. I did not celebrate the day I saw the sign go up. I thought I would. I imagined myself driving past with music blasting, laughing like revenge tasted sweet forever. But revenge is only sweet for a minute. Peace tastes better. Grant gave up his position in the company and testified against Preston. He did not ask me to take him back. That mattered more than any apology. He started working for a nonprofit that helped small businesses recover from financial abuse. For months, he sent no flowers, no love letters, no dramatic speeches. Just proof that he was becoming someone who would never leave a woman alone at a table again. I built my flagship studio in a restored building in downtown West Palm, with tall windows and sewing machines lined up like instruments. On the wall by the entrance, I framed 3 things: my mother's old measuring tape, the first sketch of Unbought, and a small piece of broken glass from my original shop window. Women came to me for gowns, but sometimes they stayed for more. A nurse whose husband emptied her savings. A single mother whose in-laws called her trash. A college student whose boyfriend said nobody would ever love a girl from her neighborhood. I started a training program for women who needed income, confidence, and a door that opened instead of slammed. I named it Maribel House, after my mother. One afternoon, almost 3 years after the dinner, Evelyn came to my studio. She wore no pearls. Her hair was gray at the roots. Her handbag was expensive but old. She looked around at the brides laughing near the mirrors, the apprentices cutting silk, the sunlight falling over racks of dresses worth more than the envelope she once used to insult me. I suppose you're proud, she said. I put down my scissors. I am. She lifted her chin, but the old cruelty had cracks in it now. I lost my house. I know. Preston took a plea. I know that too. She looked at the framed measuring tape on the wall. Grant says you taught him what courage looks like. No, I said. Cowardice taught him. I just survived it. Her mouth tightened. For a moment, I saw not a queen, not a monster, but a woman who had confused control with love until nobody loved her back. I hated you, she said quietly. Because you had nothing, and he still looked at you like you were enough. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt tired. I was enough before he looked at me. Evelyn's eyes flickered. She reached into her purse. My body went cold for a second, remembering the envelope. But this time she pulled out a folded check. I found this while clearing old accounts, she said. The $75,000. I never cashed it out. I kept it ready in case you changed your mind. I stared at her. She placed it on my cutting table. I was wrong. It was not a full apology. People like Evelyn rarely handed over clean ones. But it was the first honest thing I had ever heard from her. I picked up the check, tore it in half, then into quarters. Her face twitched. I don't need your money, I said. But Maribel House accepts donations from women who are finally ready to do something useful. A week later, a donation arrived under no public name. $75,000. Grant and I did not become a fairy tale overnight. Real love after betrayal is not fireworks. It is therapy appointments, hard questions, boundaries, and time. It is me saying, if you ever go silent while Somione humiliates me again, you will lose me forever, and him answering, I know, without defending himself. 2 years after the gala, he proposed again. Not in a mansion. Not with cameras. Not with a family ring. He asked me in the back room of my studio, surrounded by half-finished gowns and women cheering from behind the curtain because none of them could keep a secret. The ring was simple. The man kneeling was not. Leah, he said, voice breaking, I can't undo the night I let you walk out alone. But I can spend my life making sure you never stand alone again. I looked at him for a long time. Then I said yes. At our wedding, I wore a dress I designed from new silk and old scars. Nina stood beside me crying harder than anyone. Claire Huxley sent champagne. The florist from Boca filled the church with white orchids and refused to charge me. Evelyn sat in the back row. She did not smile much. But when I walked down the aisle, she stood. That was enough. Sometimes people ask what my greatest design is, expecting me to name a gown from Unbought, or the dress that went viral, or the bridal line that paid off every debt my mother left behind. I never say a dress. My greatest design was myself. A woman stitched back together after a rich family tried to price her out of love, out of dignity, and out of the room. They offered me money to vanish. Instead, I became the name they could not escape.